no matter how many enlightening experiences you've had, all they will actually do is give you more interest in truth. And the problem that they bear when we go through them is that they always feel like you have touched the entire diamond. So if you have a diamond, is that a diamond? That's more of a heart. If you touch one part of the diamond, it always feels complete. And this is kind of what happens with the enlightened spiritual traditions. Everyone feels like they're touching the whole entire thing. And when you touch one part of the diamond, it feels complete. But it doesn't mean it is actually complete. And what happens is the glimpse of your true nature, it takes you to the top of the mountain, let's just say. But the problem is that you have developed an intellect, which is your capacity to see truth over fiction, that was developed at the bottom of the mountain. So no matter how high you climb, when your intellect isn't yet awakened, in other words, you haven't had the prior context and understanding as to how you got to the top, you will intellectually walk yourself back down. And you won't do it over time, you'll do it in an instant. So when you're having a satori or an enlightening experience or a glimpse, for whatever reason, there seems to be an aspect of this intellect that is not pulling you back down yet. But as you've obviously experienced, it will bring it back down. Sometimes over a period of days, sometimes over a period of months, sometimes in an instant. And what happens is you have technically been blindfolded, taken to the top, unblindfolded, seen the top, blindfolded, and taken back down again. There's no real understanding as to what the top is, how you got there. And what this does is it leaves you in a very confused place. And a lot of times people can even feel numb, unzestful, and like this peace can seem to take place that almost isn't peace. It's like a blankness. And some people can even believe that they have touched the entire diamond and start giving up, you could say, on the spiritual path, which is also not a good thing to do. So through my experiences, no matter how many enlightening experiences I had, the one thing I realized is that it's not about the experience. And actually, the dependency on an experience was another way of seeking an object to find happiness in, something outside of myself. A state of mind is something outside of yourself, in as much so as the car, the money, the drugs, whatever it might be in the material world. It's the same thing. States of mind are just more sophisticated versions of the seeking that we do when we're in the material paradigm. So what we have to face is that, let's imagine that there was a state that was attained and then you keep that state. That state would have to be a different state to what you're currently experiencing, otherwise you wouldn't even clock it. But if there was a state that could come, a state that comes is a state that goes. States are temporary. That's the point of calling them a state. It wasn't a state, then the state came. That's the difference. The difference is what it was, now what it is. That change is a state. And whether it's a 10-minute state or a 2 billion year state or an infinitely long number of time state, it has a start, which means it will have an end. And if something starts and ends, that isn't the thing, you see? Nothing limited is what you are. So the state that comes is from an untrained nervous system that has been given a glimpse of the seventh octave, which is the realization of the absolute, when they still have the intellect and body mind of the fourth octave, which is the duality, the realm of duality, the place where you develop relationships, a home, how to feed yourself, feed a family, things like that. That intellect was built then, and if we want to establish ourselves living from truth, for lack of better phrasing, the process has to be that there is no more intellectual climbing down from the mountain, which means there's an intellectual climbing up to the mountain. Now, intellectual simply means that you are understanding and removing knowledge. Most people think you have to get more knowledge to remove suffering. No, you don't. You remove knowledge, and you don't need to get rid of suffering. Suffering doesn't need to be removed. But that's a topic for a different video. You can check these videos out on my channel. So most people think that the glimpses they have are the state that they need to go back to. Pretend that the glimpses never happened. Pretend the satori didn't take place. What you are actually going to experience is the current state that you're actually in. That's actually where the place is to be. Because if you're unable to be satisfied unconditionally which means if you're not able to be satisfied with this boring, unenlightened state of mind that you currently have, you can't ever expect to be enlightened. You see, this feels weird using these phrases, but it's true. You can't ever expect that. Why? Because enlightenment is literally, if we were to give it a term, it is the full embrace on a practical level, is what it looks like. It looks like the complete embrace of everything. So if you're unable to embrace just the regular current state that you're in, which is the bare minimum requirement, what are we going to be doing after that? You see, you think you're going to accept everything else other than this current experience that you're having, right? Don't fool yourself. So we have to see that on a practical level, this understanding does not require a change in your phenomenal experience. Yes, things will change over time. I'm not in my dad's basement anymore, for example, right? But the point I'm making is that the phenomenal changes like better relationships, better, financial situations, just general truth aligning with the physical world, that's a different thing. When I talk about the internal states, I'm talking about these excitations, these phenomenal perceptual changes that people expect to happen with enlightenment, with this actual phenomenal difference, like you can experience with a glimpse. Now, the craziest thing is that those glimpses, they feel different because they come from a different context. But the further that I went through the glimpses, the less the glimpse was a glimpse, and the more I realized this is my natural day-to-day baseline. And then there was no more need to change the day-to-day baseline because I realized this is it. This current is it. And there's no more need to change that. What need would there be to change that? For what? To make it better? How could I get better than this? Right? Let's imagine there was a state change. In order for it to be continually pleasant, it would have to keep on going up and up and up, right? State changes like here, and then it goes to there, right? That's an excitation. That's a difference. You have to just to go somewhere. It can't just be this. That's the baseline, right? So it'd have to be baseline and up. This would be the state. This is the satori, the phenomenon change, phenomenon change. And if that had to keep on going to continue to be the state, it'd have to just keep going up and up and up and up and up and up. Because if it just went like this and went like this, it'd be back to normal again. You'd feel it up, and then now it's plateaued, right? So it'd have to go up and up and up and up and up. But guess what's going to happen if that happened? This up and up and up and up that would have to keep on going forever in order for that state to be the permanent thing. You'd just be back to normal again. You'd just be going back to the power. This would eventually, if that's going on forever and ever and ever and ever, would be the new baseline. You see? It'd be the new baseline. So you wouldn't experience it, so that would be the norm. And then you'd have to have another excitation for it to be pleasant again. And it'd have to go up, right, until you use some vertical line. But guess what? You go vertical, that's it. You can't go more up than that. So that would be the baseline. So you have to see that pretend your experience right now is like you've had some Satori enlightening experience, and it's going up and up and up. But it's gone up so far that it just doesn't go more vertical. I'm talking in the XY axes, right? So we're talking a bar graph type of thing. Not bar graph, whatever those things are. And it's going up and up and up. Well, pretend it's gone up and up and up so much that you're actually just a vertical line and you can't go up any more than that. And this is where we're at. Doesn't get more up than this, but it can, right? Because we can experience joy and stuff like that. But hypothetically speaking, just pretend it doesn't get better than this. And the reason you think it has to get better than this is because there is a part of you that believes you're separate from the entire whole. And so long as you believe that you're separate, you will feel a subtle sense of lack. That subtle sense of lack will drive you to change your current experience. The act of trying to change your current experience is what suffering is. Suffering is literally, on the finest level, suffering is the sense that this current boring state of mind is not enough for me, and I must do something to change it. That's it. I want to do something slightly better just because this isn't enough. Let me go do this thing because then I'll be slightly more relieved. Let me do this thing because I'll feel a little bit better after that. This constant seeking is the premise of the separate self. So we usually think that enlightenment is a grand exotic experience. It is not a grand exotic experience. It's the fifth octave. There's 8. There's more than 8, but we're just going to go with 8. There's 8. The enlightenment is the fifth. You get a glimpse, and guess what happens after that? You perpetually go down the same rabbit holes that you did in the fourth octave. Fourth octave, what was that? Material life. I'm going to get money to find happiness. I'm going to get cars to find happiness. I'm going to do this to find happiness. You do in the fifth, you get the enlightenment. The transition from the fourth to the fifth is the enlightening glimpse, the Satori. And you go back into the same place. Why? Because you went to the top without the context and understanding that was needed to stop intellectually walking yourself back down. Because then you'll be left with, I know my true nature, but I still go through this, this, and this. I know my true nature, but I still do this and this and this. I know my true nature, but, and then you'll just be but forever. Because you've had a glimpse, genuinely, but the glimpse is a glimpse. If it glimpsed, you glimpsed it. You're not seeing it now, right? Why? Because you've walked yourself back down. Your intellect recreates the cycle of being born to where you are now in an instant. So your intellect is literally just rendering everything as this is a separate object, this is a separate object, which creates thoughts. And then you're listening to your thoughts that say that. And then the thoughts that say that make you feel a certain way. And then they drive you to make these decisions that are based on lack. So do you see how the ego structure is just based on one belief that you're separate, that makes you seek externally for happiness, that then makes you feel suffering on the inside because that resistance between what I am experiencing and what I want isn't what I'm experiencing? That friction is the suffering. Some people, and I've seen this in my community, they think they've stopped suffering. They say, I don't suffer anymore, but they're still here seeking something. Well, what's the seeking bit then? That's the suffering. That's the new sophisticated version of suffering. Yes, you're not suffering greatly anymore. You might not be having panic attacks every 2 hours. You might not be having crazy anxiety when you go to the supermarket. You might be having these phenomenal, like obvious suffering moments, but you're still suffering, you see? So the process is very simple. This whole paradigm of enlightenment, you must first take it off the pedestal. It's not a grand experience. It is simply to understand what you are, which happens at the beginning of this path. The true path begins in the fifth octave. The rest of the path, first, second, third octaves, are just getting there. The awakening glimpse happens, then there has to be a process of removing knowledge. The process of removing knowledge is basically removing the knowledge you created in the third and fourth octaves that were given to you by your school teachers, your parents, scientists, the worldview that says everything is separate, everything's made of matter. You must go through the process of removing that knowledge. How do you remove that knowledge? By understanding. We can think that removing knowledge means I have to actively find things and get rid of them. No. That will happen automatically by virtue of understanding. What understanding? Understanding what you are. Understanding what are your limitations. You must be open to the possibility that you do not know what you are, which is going to be a crazy thing for you to do because you've been addicted to knowing what you are for a few God knows how longs, right? And that's the one thing you don't want to let go of because you think you know what you are. Or if you don't know what you are, you think you're a separate self. So there's only one or the other. I'm only talking to two people right now. One of you believes that you are infinite and you are God, but you're still suffering. So clearly that is not true. Or you don't think that's what you are, but you therefore will be convinced that you're a separate self. There's only two. The other one is free. He's not watching these videos. So you have to come to terms with this, right? So you have to realize that in order to transition from I've had a glimpse or I've had an enlightening experience to actually living it, you have to let go of the enlightening experience. You have to let go of what you think you know, which even includes the memory you had of the Satori, of the enlightening experience, and the way that you interpreted it. Because this is the one key thing in this video you need to understand. When you've had a glimpse, you will have 100%, I can guarantee this for everyone, you will mistake the actual truth for the phenomenal experience, which is why you call it I had an enlightening experience in the past that isn't here right now. So if what you've seen was there and not here, well, clearly you didn't see it because this is here right now. You see? That thing isn't there. Whatever's there was there. It's not here now. But the truth is here right now. So you obviously mistook the experience. How did you mistake it? Very simply. You had a genuine glimpse of truth and interpreted that truth. Then, after the math, you interpret the interpretation. When you interpret the interpretation, guess what's going to happen? It's going to feel like it was in the past. And it isn't here right now. So this is why no matter how many Satori experiences you have, unless you genuinely remove the knowledge created by the experiences, go back to not knowing what you are on a fundamental level and be open to not knowing, right? You've got to stop being the expert that's been on the path for a few decades and had all these glimpses and experiences. And you've got to rest in the fact that you just do not know what you are. And that is a very high stage. That's the transition from the fifth to the sixth octave. The fifth to the sixth octave is where play becomes the new life. You do this path not now because you want to get enlightened or remove your suffering. You do this because you genuinely find it interesting to explore truth, only for that reason. Some people have said this too. No, truth. You don't love truth. You love removing your suffering with truth. You love using truth like a back scratcher so you can get rid of that itch. That's what you love. You have to realize notice when you are using truth in order to remove your suffering. So moving forward, I have a free community. If you have any questions on this, this is what I'm here for. You can join the calls for free. Okay? Every Thursday, 4 p.m. UK time. Links in the description for that. If any of you are watching and you haven't subscribed and you like the videos, it does help the channel if you do that. So I'd love that as well. Thank you. Have an amazing day. Take care, guys. Bye.